that stuck with me. One of the mothers said, as I was growing up, my mom would always tell me, what are you going to do with the one life that you have? And when I heard that statement or that question, what are you going to do with the one life that you have, I first thought about the brevity of life. Because we're not cats. We don't have 9 lives. We do only have one life. We have one chance. And I thought that life should have purpose and it should have meaning. And I thought that we should be making the most of the one life that we have. As God's children, we are very fortunate because we understand that God has a plan for us. In Jeremiah 29:11 says that, "For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for evil. Plans to give you a future and to give you a hope." God does have a plan for us, and we should be doing something about that. When I think of the question, what are you going to do with the one life that you have? I think of accountability, and I think of responsibility. And we're going to be reading in Matthew 25. In Matthew 25, we learn a practical lesson in accountability. For in the parable of the talents, Jesus gives us an illustration on personal responsibility. And in Matthew 25, starting in verse 14, Jesus is saying, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country, who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them." And as we go on, I also wanted to point out that talents here, talent was a sum of money. But as we go through this parable, we also want to look at it as a gift that was given by God, a gift or an ability given by God for them to invest in, for them to use. And continuing in verse 15, "And to one he gave 5 talents, to another he gave 2, and to another he gave 1, to each according to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and made another 5 talents. And likewise he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground and hid his Lord's money. And after a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them." I find it interesting here in verse 19, it says that the Lord was gone for a long time. He was gone long enough to give the servants time to think about their initial reaction, their initial decision on how they were going to invest in these talents. And continuing verse 20, it says, "So he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, 'Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 more talents besides them.' His Lord said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord.' And he also who had received 2 talents came and said, 'Lord, you delivered to me 2 talents. Look, I have gained 2 more talents besides them.' His Lord said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord.' Then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, 'Lord, I knew you were a hard man, reaping where you do not sow, gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours.' But his Lord answered and said to him, 'You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I have not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own interest. Therefore take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. You know, what I get out of this parable that Jesus gave to us is that we have been given gifts. We've been given gifts that we need to put to use. Gifts that we are to invest. Things that God has given us in charge to invest for him. Jesus also tells us that it doesn't matter where we start, whether we're giving much or whether we're given a little. What matters is what we do with what we have been given. Those of us that have been given 5 talents are not to be satisfied and pat ourselves on the back because we're already above average, but we are to continue to wisely invest in the talents that he has given to us. Those of us that start out with 1 talent are not to mope around and feel sorry for ourselves, not to think that we have nothing to offer, but rather each one of us is to find what we can do to give to the Lord, to give to his family, to give to his church, to give to his kingdom. What are you going to do with the one life that you have? Someone once said, if you want to figure out what your life's legacy should be, if you want to figure out what you want to leave behind when you're gone, that you should imagine yourself sitting at your own funeral, sitting in the back of the church, and thinking about what you would want other people to say about you when you're gone. And those things should become your legacy. And you should spend the rest of your life developing those qualities. You know, there is some truth in this idea, because looking at yourself the way other people look at you can encourage you to live better lives, can motivate you to be a better person. But in reality, it's not so much what other people think of you that's the important thing, but it's rather what God has to say about you. The point of us living our life to the fullest is not to increase our reputation with man, but to make our life count for God, to invest in what God says is going to make a difference. You know, tonight I ask you again, what are you going to do with the one life that you have, with the one life that God has blessed you with? And we always offer an invitation here at Pinellas Park, and to give anyone an opportunity to respond to the invitation. And if you have any reason that you need to respond tonight, we would encourage you to come forward now as we stand and sing.